"Oh, it's okay, little baby, don't cry. This boy Micah gets bullied at school by a group of thugs. What they don't know is that Micah's brother, Reed, a recently retired Special Forces soldier, is watching over him. I want you to show me who hit you yesterday. What are you going to do when Reed finds out what's been happening?" He asks Micah to point out the ones responsible, determined to teach them a lesson. Reed takes Micah to follow the bullies to a bar. Reed calls over the bartender and orders a fireball cocktail packed with chili peppers. Then, for each of the bullies' girlfriends, he orders a drink as well, shots for the ladies and a cosmopolitan for each of the guys. Sensing the provocation, one of the thugs storms over. "I don't want it, though. You can have it," drinking hands and throwing it in Reed's face. Reed just smiles and returns the favor with a fiery cocktail. When it comes to those who hurt his little brother, Reed doesn't hold back. Each of them takes a heavy blow for the damages. After leaving cash to cover the damages, he walks out with Micah, but no one knows that Reed isn't actually Micah's brother. He's the former comrade of Micah's real brother. Tragedy hit the Adams family hard. 2 weeks ago, his brother died in combat. After the loss of their eldest son, Mason, in the war, the Adams family, Jacob, his wife Carla, and their 2 children, Micah and Riley, are struggling to cope. One morning, Carla is seen drowning in sorrow after Jacob and Micah head out of the house. Suddenly, a seemingly polite and composed man arrives at their doorstep. Carla is taken aback when he addresses her by her name, apparently aware of who she is. "I knew your son Mason, and we trained together and served together, and, well, we came to be good friends." The man introduces himself as Reed Walker, a former U.S. Army sergeant, and claims he was Mason's closest friend during their service. Carla then invites Reed into their home and offers him a drink, albeit a sense of suspicion still lingering in her mind. He continues to explain that he had spent several months recovering in a military hospital due to an injury and came over right after being discharged. "I was with him when he died. One of the things he asked was for me to check on y'all. He wanted me to tell you that he loved you." Overwhelmed with sadness, Carla excuses herself to use the washroom, where she sobs uncontrollably. Upon returning to the living room, Reed shows her a photo of Mason's deployment. Carla's previous doubts about him vanish into thin air. Instantly noticing the saddened expression on Carla's face, Reed quickly puts on an apologetic facade and pretends to be leaving. "I probably should have called first, but I'm going to be on my way now." However, Carla persuades him to stay by insisting that Riley would want to meet him. Warm and respectful, Reed quickly earns Carla's trust, though Riley remains wary upon hearing his plans to stay at a local motel. Carla offers Reed a room in their home for as long as he needs. "In fact, you can stay in Mason's old room. We insist." After Riley leaves for work, Carla shows Reed to his guest room and reassures him that she does not mind him using Mason's room, then leaves him to get settled in. As soon as she is gone, Reed is seen wearing an unreadable expression. Meanwhile, Micah is harassed by bullies at school, but does not have the guts to retaliate. He puts on an indifferent disposition when Carla picks him up from school, acting as though nothing happened. "How was your day?" "It was good. Great." As Reed settles in, he quickly involves himself in the Adams' lives. Back at home, Micah gets to know Reed while Jacob is heard arguing with Carla for letting a supposed stranger into their home. "You know what? What if he has PTSD or whatever it's called? Some of these guys come back with mental health problems." Carla is worried that the soldier's friendly demeanor masks a darker, unstable side often seen in veterans suffering from PTSD. Meanwhile, Reed notices the bruises on Micah's face inflicted by bullies at school, but the latter shrugs it off casually. Yeah, I got hit with a football in gym class." After having a brief exchange with Reed, Jacob storms off in rage, and Carla urges Micah to do his homework. Reed praises Micah for his intellect as he helps the boy with his homework, making him feel flattered. "So you're kind of smart, huh?" "I guess so." Soon, Riley returns home from work but remains cold toward Reed. On the other hand, Jacob's attitude toward their guest has evidently changed for the better. Late at night, the duo shares a deep conversation over beer and a football game as Jacob unwittingly pours his heart out to Reed. The latter learns that he is facing finance and job-related stress. It's only been there for like 4 years? But he's got a degree, so boom. Suddenly, he's promoted to regional manager, and Jacob is unsatisfied that his young colleague, who has only joined the company for a short time, is the one promoted instead of him just because he doesn't have a degree. Carla's worries about their finances aggravate the situation further. When Reed reveals his plan to travel to Florida and work in construction, Jacob immediately objects and asks him to prolong his stay with them. That's crazy. You don't know where you're going. Stay here for a couple more days. By then, Jacob has started to take a liking to Reed. While the older man gets himself another beer, the expression on Reed's face darkens. It did not take long before Reed became a supportive figure in the family. He even goes to pick up Micah from school on Carla's behalf and solves his big problem of school bullying, earning Micah's complete trust. On the other hand, Reed's bond with Riley is more complicated. That evening, Carla forces Riley to take Reed with her to a Halloween party. While getting ready for the party, Riley assumes Micah is occupying the washroom and urges him to come out, only to come face to face with a half-naked Reed. Stunned by his perfect figure, she stutters, blushing uncontrollably. Although reluctant, Riley brings Reed along to the party hosted by her friend Morgan. When she reveals that she has a boyfriend, Jaden, he promises to keep it a secret between them. I won't say anything. It's none of my business. Reed quickly impresses her friends with his good looks while Riley sneaks away with Jaden. Morgan is accosted by her aggressive ex-boyfriend Chad. Reed intervenes and protects her by beating up Chad. Let's get him out of here. Impressed by him, Morgan later sleeps with Reed, unaware of his dark side. During the party, Reed also inquires about buying firearms from Riley's friend Brent. When asked why he needs them, he replies, "I'm a soldier, man. I like guns." He then notices that Riley and Jaden are in the midst of a fight. Evidently in a bad mood, Riley decides to leave early and Reed takes the initiative to take the wheel on the ride home. Riley expresses frustration about her boyfriend Jaden's lack of ambition. While I have been saving for college, he just isn't moving on. I mean, he doesn't even have a job. Reed flatters her, saying he would not have gone to war if he had a girl like her. Hell, if I had a girl like you back home, I would have gone over to the Middle East to get shot at. She offers to make him a mix CD when he expresses interest in a song on the radio. Upon returning home, Riley gets immersed in music and her thoughts as she creates the mix CD for Reed as promised. Unbeknownst to her, the man is sitting motionless in his room with a grim, almost frightening look on his face. The same day, Riley accidentally overhears Reed having an intense phone conversation with an unknown caller using Micah's phone. He seems to be demanding a new face from someone suspected to be a plastic surgeon. Fingers, yes, as soon as possible. I'm off the grid for now, but there are people trying to look for me. From the conversation, it can be heard that someone is going after him. Feeling suspicious, Riley contacts the military base for more information to verify his identity. Yeah, his name is Reed Anderson Walker. I can tell you the unit that he served in if that helps. This phone call triggers an alert at a private military contractor called KPG. It turns out Reed is the test subject of a military program who was assumed dead based on military records. Major Richard Carver, the head of the project, assembles a special forces team upon knowing that Reed is with the Adams family and heads to his location. Book me on the next flight. If we need to charter something, do it, and I'm going to need some shooters. Soon after, Reed meets up with Brent and his associate to buy guns. Upon confirming that Reed has brought cash with him, Brent's partner eagerly introduces the firearms he brought. It's a standard Beretta. I'm sure you're familiar with it. In my opinion, if you've seen one of these, you've seen them all. Reed then declares that he will take all of the items, which delights the other two. I'll cut you a deal. You can take them all off my hands. No, I'm going to kill you. Without blinking an eye, Reed murders both men with a handgun before stealing their weapons and grenades. Meanwhile, Riley receives updates from the military base about Reed and tries to tell Carla about it, but is interrupted by Jacob's return. It comes to light that Jacob's boss and girlfriend have died under mysterious circumstances. They both took a bunch of prescription pills. It was like they committed suicide together or something. Ironically, this supposed tragedy paved the way for Jacob's sudden promotion and salary raise. Soon Riley receives bad news through a phone call from Jaden telling her that Brent has been murdered. Overwhelmed with shock, Riley heads to the restaurant where Morgan works to seek solace. Back at home, Reed and Micah sit on the porch to carve pumpkins for Halloween. Reed finds their kitchen knife blunt and forks out his own Swiss Army knife, cutting through the pumpkin in one swift motion. Do you carry that with you, like, all the time? Sure. At the restaurant, Riley shares with Morgan the shocking information she received from the military. They told me that Reed Walker died a week ago. Reed Walker supposedly died a week ago. His demise caused by a fire in a military hospital in Nevada. These disturbing coincidences build Riley's suspicions further, and Morgan suggests she ask Micah to look up the numbers Reed has called on his burner. With the pumpkins carved, Reed and Micah get back inside the house. The former encourages Micah to defend himself against the bullies by bringing a knife to school. They take it off you and beat you up. You go around their houses at night and burn them down with their families inside. What's the worst they can do? He then gifts Micah a Swiss Army knife. Right then, Riley returns home pretending as though nothing happened, casually striking up a conversation as she walks past them. Riley discreetly picks up Reed's phone when they are not looking and quickly retreats to her room. She then turns on some loud music and snaps a photo of the phone numbers in the call history. At that moment, Reed's phone abruptly rings, throwing Riley into a state of panic. Not wanting to get caught, she hastily tosses the phone onto the bed in Reed's room before rushing back to her own room. Almost immediately, Reed appears in the hallway with a grim expression, tracing the subtle phone ring. He marches to his room and picks up the phone as a deep-seated suspicion rises in him. Reed lingers outside Riley's room in an attempt to eavesdrop, but all he hears is loud music blasting through the door. Holding her breath behind the door the entire time, Riley only lets down her guard when he finally leaves. Not long after, she receives a call from Jaden, who is being detained by the authorities. It turns out that he is convicted of killing Brent and his partner, as the gun used in the killing was found in his van. But you're innocent. Then they searched my room and found some other stuff. Filled with despair, Riley feels that the world around her is collapsing, and it all begins with Reed's appearance. Riley confides in her family, and though her mother shares her sorrow, Jacob is particularly dismissive. You want to know why Jaden was arrested for murder? Because he probably did it. That's why. He was already disapproving of Jaden to begin with, which is why she kept their relationship in the shadows. As the fight between father and daughter intensifies, Riley reveals what she found out about Reed. I called the military base that he said he was from, and they told me he was dead. Nonetheless, the man justifies her suspicions calmly, explaining that he was from a special forces unit and that the military gave her a cover story for civilians. Having said that, he fishes out his military name tags to prove his identity. Convinced by Reed's words, Jacob is infuriated by Riley's accusations and demands that she apologize to him. Riley Adams, you owe him an apology right now. You watch your mouth, young lady. In a rage, Riley curses at her father and storms off to her room. Feigning innocence, Reed continues to explain the misunderstanding to the Adams couple while Riley sits in contemplation. She is interrupted by Reed's sudden appearance. Taken aback, she freezes in terror, expecting hostile behavior from him at first. Reed begins in a gentle manner. I just want to say how sorry I am about Brent. He promises to move on from their house in a few days, hinting at Riley to stop poking her nose into his business. Okay. His intense eyes are fixed on Riley until she finally agrees. While leaving, Reed's attention is caught by the mix CD Riley made for him. As though nothing happened, he puts on a superficial cheery facade. Thank you. I can't wait to listen to it. Meanwhile, Richard heads off to the airport while assembling a team for his mission to capture Reed. I want every contractor within a 100-mile radius, and I need a team mobilized by the time I land. As Riley digs deeper, She discovers using a reverse directory that Reed had been calling a plastic surgeon in Savannah named Dr. Lal Carrington, whose license was revoked 2 years ago. She asks Micah to help uncover more information on Reed. You really think Reed killed Brent and that other guy? Although Micah is still having reservations about Riley's suspicions, he agrees to help her nonetheless. When Micah is attacked again at school, he fights back by punching the bully in the face and hitting him with a yardstick. After both are sent to the principal's office, Reed arrives with Carla to talk to the principal. Reed is pleased to find out that Micah took up his advice and fought back when he was bullied. Due to the school's policy against violence, the principal decides to expel Micah. A gay student targeted with physical violence finally defends himself. And you're what? Suspending him? Using his quick wit and knowledge of the law, Reed blackmails the school principal into going easy on Micah, coercing him to only give the boy a month of detention. Feeling indebted, Micah tells Reed of Riley's suspicions and her plans to report him to the authorities. She thinks you killed Brent, and she's trying to make a case to the police to let her boyfriend go. At first, Reed shrugs it off casually, but when Micah reveals that he knows Reed is impersonating the real Walker with the help of the plastic surgeon, his expression turns grim instantly. Nevertheless, Micah promises not to investigate any further or tell anyone else. I'm not going to tell anyone about it, and nobody will believe Riley. She doesn't have anything against you. Reed also finds out that Riley has told Morgan about him. While Reed is helping Carla with laundry, she expresses her heartfelt gratitude for his help and support to the family. Everything. I am really grateful. Reed responds with slight unease and goes to retrieve the rest of the laundry. The truth comes out in a violent clash when Richard and his team arrive at the Adams home. Before Richard has a chance to explain the situation to Carla, Reed reappears with the laundry, and both parties immediately engage in an intense shootout. With his leg injured, Reed attempts to make an escape but encounters Carla in the kitchen. When she questions his real identity, he reveals that he and Mason were in the same program. Hiding the knife in his hand, Reed has second thoughts about killing Carla. However, she exposes his location without warning, prompting Reed to stab her in the chest with the kitchen knife. By then, Reed has slaughtered every member of the team except Richard. Driving away, he runs into Jacob. I'm really sorry about this, sir. Injured during the confrontation, Reed continues his mission to eliminate all loose ends. With his car tires flattened, Richard borrows a civilian's car to pick up Riley from the diner. Not long after their departure, Reed arrives at the same diner to look for Riley, but to no avail. Frustrated, he proceeds to kill Morgan by shooting her in the chest and blows up the diner with grenades. After receiving a call, Richard decides to go look for Micah. He reveals that Reed was a participant in a top-secret military medical program, an advanced behavioral conditioning program designed to create perfect soldiers. Reed escaped after setting the test facility ablaze, killing everyone inside and leaving behind charred, unidentifiable bodies so that the world would believe he was dead. At the school's recreation center, Micah is serving after-school detention by helping out with prom preparations. He is about to answer Riley's call when the teacher warns him against using phones during detention and confiscates his phone. On the way to the recreation center, Riley and Richard notice police cars and fire trucks going in the opposite direction. Only then does Richard tell her about the incident at the diner. Somebody attacked her diner right after we left. It was called in as an explosion. An ominous feeling arises in Riley. Wait, where are my parents? They're both dead. Richard goes on to explain Reed's neurological conditioning that protects both him and the experiment. When the experiment failed, Reed became a programmed killer, eliminating anyone who might compromise his identity. He is unlikely to stop himself even if he wants to. Soon, Riley and Richard arrive at the school where a Halloween dance is underway inside a haunted house setup. As soon as they get to Micah, Reed announces his presence by cutting off the power. He then plays Riley's mixed CD over the speakers as he begins his final rampage. Amid the confusion and flickering lights, Reed kills Micah's teacher and Richard with a box cutter. At first, Micah refuses to believe that Reed is as sinister as Riley claims, even suggesting that they go talk to him. What's going on? But Reed wouldn't hurt us. However, his presumptions about Reed shatter when Riley tells him about their parents' demise. He killed Mom and Dad. After ensuring Micah is well hidden, Riley goes off on her own to find Reed. Now showing his true colors, Reed searches for Micah in order to kill him. Come on out, buddy. I'm not going to hurt you. Just when Micah thinks he's about to get caught, Reed gets distracted by a noise from afar. He follows a blood trail from the spot where Richard's gun had been and finds Riley standing behind him. You killed my parents. Keen to avenge her parents, she fires the gun at Reed, who collapses to the ground. Assuming she got him for good, Riley lets down her guard only to get stabbed in the leg by Reed in a surprise attack. She attempts to shoot him, but the gun misfires and sparks a fire. Reed then proceeds to strangle her. In a final act of courage, Micah intervenes and stabs Reed with the knife Reed had given him, freeing Riley. Wounded, Reed tells Micah he did the right thing. You did the right thing, and gives a thumbs up before collapsing to the ground. In the aftermath, Riley and Micah sit outside in an ambulance, bloodied and shell-shocked.